Have you always wanted to import a car from Japan? In this video, I'll go through the very first steps you need to take in order to import your JDM dream car. My name's Alex, and I purchased a 2000 Silvia Spec R from Japan. Follow along on my journey while I import and modify my first JDM vehicle. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out my channel. I wanted to make this video to go over the experience that I've had so far with the exportation of my car. There's a lot of things that I've come to realize during the process of buying a car, finding a car, working with exporters, sending money overseas, that I kind of thought would be good to put all into one video, kind of go over what you need to get started, what you need to look out for, maybe some tips and tricks that I wish that I knew going into the whole purchase process. So the first thing that I want to talk about and spend this video on was essentially just money. Money makes the world go round in this whole transaction. Without money, you're not going to be buying a car. So how do you get started with actually funding one of these purchases? So there's a few different ways to go about that. The best way is always going to be cash. Cash is king, as they say. Typically when you have cash, you're able to move very quickly with a purchase of a car. You're able to send funds directly to the exporter. You don't have to deal with any third party. You're going to be experiencing the easiest process that you could possibly have when trying to buy one of these cars. When you buy one of these cars, you're going to have to send money overseas, and that can take quite some time. So in the process of checking out a car, deciding if you want to buy it, gathering the money, sometimes people with cash are going to be the ones that can make the transaction the fastest and could take the car away from you. In my situation, I did purchase my car with cash. It was a process that did take at least a week for the money to even get over to the exporter's account. So cash is probably the best way to do it, if you can do it. Now, not everyone can do that, especially with a lot of cars like the R34 GTR, which is upwards of $100,000 to $150,000. Maybe some of those funds you may need to finance. And there are ways to finance these cars. Typically, it's going to be some sort of collector car financing. Some of the lenders that are out there are companies like Lightstream, JJ's Best, Collector Car Lending, and you can even get ones through SoFi, a personal loan. These financing options are different depending upon which company you go with. Typically what you need in order to satisfy one of these lenders is going to be at least a 650 credit score, and you're going to need to put at least 10% down on the vehicle. There is another way to get finance. You can get financing through an exporter. Some of the exporters that offer financing are names like Top Rank or JDM Classic Cars. There are probably others out there, but I can't list them all. They will offer these services as a way to bring you in as a customer and facilitate that whole process for you as a third party to make it a little easier on their clients. What are the hidden fees? This is something I wish I knew going into purchasing the car. Sometimes you kind of read things on the internet on what to expect, but there's some hidden fees that you don't really think of, or not a lot of people mention when you actually make this purchase. So the first thing I want to talk about is the inspection fees. So there's fees from the exporter. This is something that a lot of the exporters have. They will charge based off of the inspection that they're doing. It is a cost of their services. They typically will go out and either go to an auction or they will go to a car at a dealership somewhere and perform an inspection of the car for you. These inspections are usually very thorough and take a lot of time. On top of doing the inspection, there's going to be fees associated with travel time. There's going to be fees with towing a vehicle if you pick it up from one location and it needs to be stored somewhere. There's going to be fees for them to travel to locations to inspect the vehicle. This is all their time and money that they have to spend in order to provide this service. There's fees associated with possible maintenance plans that you may have with the exporter itself. There's going to be exportation fees when your car is actually ready to ship and go on the boat. There's going to be fees for not only the shipping, but there's going to be maritime insurance built into that. There's going to be customs fees built into that. A lot of people will spend the money on a customs broker in order to offload the headache of going through the whole customs process, because sometimes that's going to be confusing. You probably have never been to the port before, and you don't know if you have the right paperwork, if you're at the right gate, or where your car is. And so it's something that you can purchase as a service with a third party, and they will take care of all of that for you, including, if necessary, shipping from the port to your location. They can assist you with finding someone to ship the car or truck it or trailer it to wherever you are in the country. One of the fees that I wish I knew about was the consumption tax. So in Japan, there is a tax associated with sales, which is called their consumption tax. You can think of it as a sales tax. Right now, that sales tax is 10%. So I will say full disclosure that I am not a tax expert. Please don't take my advice as 100% the truth in the matter, but based off of the research that I've done and the conversations that I've had, this is what I found out about consumption tax with the exportation of a vehicle. This percentage right now is 10% in Japan, and it is added on to a lot of purchases that you make on a day-to-day basis. There is a process of purchasing goods in Japan on a tax-free basis. So you can go to a store and purchase, some sort of item, whatever it may be, electronics, clothing, and you can present your passport as a foreigner to the cashier, and they will take off consumption tax automatically. There is nothing else you need to do in order to remove that tax or get tax-free discount as a foreigner in Japan, which is pretty cool. A lot of people take advantage of this though, and this tax can sometimes be abused by people who are buying goods in Japan. So at the moment, it is currently about a 10% rate. And from what I've heard with the exportation of cars, this is also something that can be taken off during the transaction of a vehicle. From the information that I've gathered, as a customer purchasing a vehicle from outside the country, there is a process of negotiating with your exporter to remove the consumption tax or essentially get that money back. Because when that vehicle gets exported, when that vehicle is essentially exported from the country, that tax is then provided back to the person who purchased the vehicle, which would be your exporter. So I would recommend looking into this on your own. I am by means no expert on the tax. It is something that I've learned of very recently myself, especially something now that I'm going to take advantage of since I am going to be traveling to Japan at the end of the year to visit my car. I believe it is something you will need to talk through and negotiate with them before you make the purchase and send the money overseas. So what is your budget for your car? Because in my opinion, from what I've seen, I would add an extra $5,000 to $8,000 on top of your budget, just to take care of all the exportation, the taxes, custom brokerage, the shipping, all the little hidden fees that you may not have known about going into the purchase of the car up front. The next thing I want to talk about is insurance. So I asked my exporter if I could insure the car while it was sitting in Japan, and I could not. It is not registered in Japan. Now, there may be some exporters that may register the car for you. As far as I know, mine did not offer that service, and I don't plan on driving my car around when I do go to visit it. I just want to see the car before it actually gets shipped out and visit the beautiful country of Japan while we're there. So once you receive your car, what are you going to do about insurance on the vehicle? There is a bunch of different collector car insurance companies out there that will offer insurance on gray market cars, is what they call them. A gray market car is technically a new or used imported vehicle that was legally imported through a distribution or third-party system. So it's a car that wasn't imported directly through typical channels and has been brought over by third party that's labeled as a gray market car. These cars have to be 25 years or older in the United States, so they can be registered as collector cars. Some of the names that you can get collector car insurance through are Hagerty, American Collectors, Grundy, or if you have Progressive, they actually offer collector car insurance with Hagerty. With a lot of these collector car insurances, they're going to request that you have a garage in order to protect your asset. It is not something that they think you will just leave outside all the time. Each individual insurance company is probably going to have their own rules and restrictions, but be fairly similar, so it's worth checking into each one. So the last thing I want to talk about is sending money. So how does money get sent over when you're ready to buy your car? Well, this is going to be something that is dependent upon your exporter. It depends on which service they're planning to use in order to receive your funds, but the process is going to be about the same for every single service. So there's several foreign exchange services that can allow you to send send money overseas. A lot of these services are probably going to have the same experience where you send your funds in yen to the exporter, and it will take some time for it actually to go through. These funds are going to be wired over to the exporter and their bank account. These foreign exchange services offer different types of ways to send your money over. You can either do like a bank transfer, or you can make a credit card purchase. If you have a GTR credit card limit, good for you. From my experience, what I ended up using was Flywire as a company, and I sent a bank transfer over to my exporter. That whole process did take several days. I believe the exporter got my funds about 7 to 10 days after I originally sent it. So talk about a terrifying experience, sending thousands of dollars out to the void and never knowing if it actually made it on the other end for 10 days. So I can remember very clearly the moment I sent my money over, and I was constantly checking my email to receive the confirmation from the other end, which inevitably took 7 to 10 days. Another company to send money across seas is a company called Wise, which I've been familiar with a couple times now with purchasing car parts from vendors or through the Yahoo Marketplace, and sending yen through a transactional service over to Japan. If you do end up using Wise to send money or make your purchase, be sure to click on the link below in order to use my code to save on transaction fees on your first transaction up to $600. So speaking of the delays with funds and how they get over there, this does mean a lot for how your transaction will go down. If you are getting your car from auction, you will need to have money up front in order to send over to an exporter. Not all exporters will have the funds available to cover for the time it takes to send money overseas. Sometimes not having money means that you may not get the car. You know, someone else may come along that has cash ready to send over, and a dealer or exporter will work with them. These cars are on a first come first serve basis. So if you do not have the money to send over right away or make that transaction, then you may lose out on the car of your dreams. So hopefully this first video answered any initial questions that you may have about money and the transaction of funds. I think it's very important to make sure that you're ready to go when you do find your car, because you never know if someone else may come along and get that car before you do. So I hope this video helped out. Stay tuned for the next video in my series where I'm going to talk about where to start looking for a car, how to pick out and find an exporter that you trust, and what happens next when you actually find the car. What does that process look like? If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.